Pelargonium is a genus of flowering plants which includes about 200 species of perennials, succulents, and shrubs, commonly known as geraniums. Confusingly, geranium is the correct botanical name of a separate genus of related plants often called cranesbills or hardy geraniums. Both genera belong to the family Geraniaceae. The confusion stems from Linnaeus originally including all the species in one genus, Geranium, but their later being separated into two genera by Charles La unregistered trademark copyright Ritter in 1789. Pelargonium species are evergreen perennials indigenous to southern Africa, and are drought and heat tolerant, but can tolerate only minor frosts. Some species are extremely popular garden plants, grown as bedding plants in temperate regions. Description: Pelargonium occurs in a large number of growth forms, including herbaceous annuals, shrubs, subshrubs, stem succulents and geophytes. The erect stems bear 5-petal flowers in umbel-like clusters, which are occasionally branched. Because not all flowers appear simultaneously but open from the center outwards, this form of inflorescence is referred to as umbels. The flower has a single symmetry plane, which distinguishes it from the geranium flower, which is radial symmetry. Thus the lower 3 petals are differentiated from the upper 2 petals. The posterior sepal is fused with the pedicel to form a hypanthium. The nectary tube varies from only a few millimeters, up to several centimeters, and is an important floral characteristic in morphological classification. Stamens vary from 2 to 7, and their number, position relative to staminodes, and curvature are used to identify individual species. There are 5 stigmata in the style. For the considerable diversity in flower morphology, see Figure 1 of Ra paragraph Schenblick al. Leaves are usually alternate, and palmately lobed or pinnate, often on long stalks, and sometimes with light or dark patterns. The leaves of Pelargonium peltatum have a thick cuticle better adapting them for drought tolerance. Taxonomy: Pelargonium is the second largest genus within the Geraniaceae family, within which it is sister to the remaining genera of the family in its strict sense, Erodium, Geranium, and Mansonia including Sarcocaulon. The Geraniaceae have a number of genetic features unique amongst angiosperms, including highly rearranged plastid genomes differing in gene content, order and expansion of the inverted repeat. History: the first species of Pelargonium known to be cultivated was P. trist, a native of South Africa. It was probably brought to the Botanical Garden in Leiden before 1600 on ships which stopped at the Cape of Good Hope. In 1631, the English gardener John Tradescant the Elder bought seeds from René Morin in Paris and introduced the plant to England. The name Pelargonium was introduced by Johannes Berman in 1738, from the Greek I micron II plus or minus II cubed IOI, pelarga cubed s, because the seed head looks like a stork's beak. Carl Linnaeus originally grouped together in the same genus the 3 similar genera Erodium, Geranium, and Pelargonium. The distinction between them was made by Charles Louis Le copyright Ritter de Brutal based on the number of stamens or anthers, 7 in the case of Pelargonium. The chemist, John Dalton, first realized that he was color-blind in 1794 when he heard others describe the color of the flowers of the pink, as pink or red, when to him it looked either pink or blue, having no relationship to red at all. Circumscription: Pelargonium is distinguished from the other genera in the Geraniaceae family by the presence of a hypanthium, which consists of an adnate nectar spur with 1 nectary, as well as a generally zygomorphic floral symmetry. Subdivision: De Candolle first proposed dividing the genus into 12 sections in 1824, based on the diversity of growth forms. Traditionally the large number of Pelargonium species have been treated as 16 sections, based on the classification of Newth who described 15 sections, as modified by van der Waalt al. who added charisma, reniformia and subsucculentia. These are as follows: Section Campilia de Candolle, Section Charisma de Candolle, Section Zirconium Harvey, Section Cortucina Harvey, Section Glaucopilum Harvey, Section Horia de Candolle, Section Isuptulum de Candolle, Section Jenkinsonia de Candolle, section Ligularia Harvey, section Mydidium decandle, section Notidia decandle, section Pelargonium Harvey, section Peristra decandle, section Polyactium decandle, section Rhiniformia drea, section Subsucculentia J.J.A. van der Waalt. Phylogenetic analyses. All subdivision classifications had depended primarily on morphological differences till the era of phylogenetic analyses. However, phylogenetic analysis shows only 3 distinct clades, labeled A, B and C. In this analysis not all sections were monophyletic, although some were strongly supported, including Charisma, Mydidium and Genkinsonia, while other sections were more paraphyletic. This in turn has led to a proposal, informal at this stage, of a reformulation of the infrageneric subdivision of Pelargonium. In the proposed scheme of Weng al. There would be 2 subgenera, based on clades A plus B, and C respectively, and 7 sections based on subclades. Subsequent analysis with an expanded taxa set confirmed this infrageneric subdivision into 2 groups which also correspond to chromosome length, but also 2 subclades within each major clade, suggesting the presence of 4 subgenera. These correspond to clades A, B, C1 and C2 of the earlier analysis, A being by far the largest clade with 141 taxa. As before, the internal structure of the clades supported monophyly of some sections but paraphyly in others. A distinct clade could be identified within the paraphyletic Polyactium, designated section Magnistipulaceae. As a result, Polyactium has been split up to provide this new section, which in itself contains 2 subsections, Magnistipulaceae and Schizopetala, following Muth's original treatment of Polyactium as having 4 subsections. Thus Paragraph Schenblick al. provide a complete revision of the subgeneric classification of Pelargonium based on 4 subgenera corresponding to their major clades. Subgenus Magnipetala Ruischenb. And F. albers type, Pelargonium praemisum F. Dietrich, subgenus Parvulipetala Ruischenb. And F. albers type, Pelargonium hypolyicum Turchinino, subgenus Parsizignata Ruischenb. And F. albers type, Pelargonium zonale la copyright Renaton, subgenus Pelargonium la copyright R. Type, Pelargonium cucullatum W. Aton. 16 sections were then assigned to the new subgenera as follows, although many species remained only assigned to subgenera at this stage: subgenus Magnipetala 3 sections, section Charisma decandle, 4 species, section Genkinsonia decandle, 11 species, section Mydidium decandle, 8 species. Subgenus Parvulipetala 3 sections, section Isuptulum decandle, 1 species La copyright R. Section Peristra decandle, 30 species, section Rhiniformia drea, 8 species. Subgenus Parsizignata 2 sections. Section Succulents Harvey, 16 species, section Subsucculenta J.J.A. van der Waalt, 3 species. Subgenus Pelargonium 8 sections, section Campilia decandle, 9 species, section Cortucina Harvey, 7 species, section Horia decandle, 72 species, section Ligularia Harvey, 10 species, section Magnistipulaceae Ruischenb. And F. albers type, Pelargonium schlechteri Muth, 2 subsections, subsection Magnistipulaceae Ruischenb. And F. albers type, Pelargonium schlechteri Muth, 2 species, subsection Schizopetala Ruischenb. And F. albers type, Pelargonium Kefram Studel, 3 species. Section Notidia decandle, 14 species, section Pelargonium la copyright R. 34 species, section Polyactium decandle, 2 subsections, subsection Colescentia Nuth, 1 species, subsection Polyactium decandle, 7 species. Subgenera, subgenus Magnipetala, corresponds to clade C1, with 24 species. Perennial to short-lived, spreading subshrubs, rarely herbaceous annuals. Petals 5, but maybe 4, color mainly white. Mainly winter rainfall region of South Africa, spreading into summer rainfall region. 1 species in northern Namibia and Botswana. 2 species in East Africa and Ethiopia. Chromosomes X equals 11 and 9. Subgenus Parvulipetala, corresponds to clade B, with 39 to 42 species. Perennials, partly annuals. Petals 5 and equal, color white or pink to deep purplish red. Mainly South Africa, but also other southern hemisphere except South America. A few species in East Africa and Ethiopia. Chromosomes X equals 7-19. Subgenus Parsizignata, corresponds to clade C2, with 25 to 27 species. Erect sometimes trailing shrubs or subshrubs, rarely geophytes or semi-geophytes. Petals 5 and equal, color pink to red sometimes white. Summer rainfall region of South Africa, spreading into winter rainfall region in northern Namibia, with a few species in tropical Africa, Ethiopia, Somalia, Madagascar, the Arabian Peninsula and Asia Minor. Chromosomes X equals mainly 9 or 10, but from 4 to 18. Subgenus Pelargonium, corresponds to clade A, with 167 species. Frequently xerophytic deciduous perennials with many geophytes and succulent subshrubs, less frequently woody evergreen shrubs or annual herbs. Petals 5, color shades of pink to purple or yellow. Winter rainfall region of South Africa and adjacent Namibia, spreading to summer rainfall area, and 2 species in tropical Africa. Chromosomes X equals 11, maybe 8 to 10. Species, cultivars and hybrids. Pelargonium has between 200 to 280 species. The plant list currently accepts 250 species names. Ra paragraph Schenblick lists 281 taxa. There is considerable confusion as to which Pelargonium are true species, and which are cultivars or hybrids. The nomenclature has changed considerably since the first plants were introduced to Europe in the 17th century. Distribution: Pelargonium is a large genus within the Geraniaceae family, which has a worldwide distribution in temperate to subtropical zones with some 800 mostly herbaceous species. Pelargonium itself is native to southern Africa and Australia. Southern Africa contains 90% of the genus, with only about 30 species found elsewhere, predominantly the East African Rift Valley and southern Australia, including Tasmania. The remaining few species are found in southern Madagascar, Yemen, Iraq, Asia Minor, the north of New Zealand and isolated islands in the South Atlantic Ocean and Socotra in the Indian Ocean. The center of diversity is in southwestern South Africa where rainfall is confined to the winter, unlike the rest of the country where rainfall is predominantly in the summer months. Most of the Pelargonium plants cultivated in Europe and North America have their origins in South Africa. Ecology: Pelargonium species are used as food plants by the larvae of some Lepidoptera species, including angle shades. The Japanese beetle, an important agricultural insect pest, becomes rapidly paralyzed after consuming flower petals of the garden hybrids known as zonal geraniums. The phenomenon was first described in 1920, and subsequently confirmed. Research conducted by Dr. Christopher Ranger with the USDA Agricultural Research Service and other collaborating scientists have demonstrated the excitatory amino acid called quasqualic acid present within the flower petals is responsible for causing paralysis of the Japanese beetle. Quasqualic acid is thought to mimic L-glutamic acid, which is a neurotransmitter in the insect neuromuscular junction and mammalian central nervous system. A study by the Laboratory of Apiculture and Social Insects Group at the University of Sussex on the attractiveness of common garden plants to pollinators found that a cultivar of Pelargonium hortorum was unattractive to pollinators in comparison to other selected garden plants such as Lavandula and Origanum. Pests and diseases. Cultivation: their main requirement is a warm, sunny, sheltered location. Many varieties will tolerate drought conditions for short periods. They are commonly seen in bedding schemes in parks and gardens, but can also be grown indoors as houseplants if given enough light. More compact erect and trailing varieties are ideal for window boxes and hanging baskets, in association with other half-hardy plants like lobelias, petunias and begonias. Thousands of Pelargonium cultivars are available from garden centers or specialist suppliers during the spring and summer months. They are regular participants in flower shows and competitive events, with numerous societies devoted exclusively to their cultivation. they are easy to propagate vegetatively from cuttings. Overwintering, despite not being frost-hardy, pelargoniums are extremely easy to grow and to propagate, but are usually grown as annuals. As they are evergreen perennials, they can be kept in flower throughout the winter months in a sufficiently favored spot. There are even one or two fully hardy species from Turkey. There are a number of methods for successfully overwintering pelargoniums in cooler zones than their native habitats. Cuttings, for large numbers of plants, and particularly soft-stemmed pelargoniums that cannot be kept in a semi-dormant state, softwood cuttings can be taken in late summer, the old woody plants discarded. The cuttings are then planted, and once rooted overwintered in compost-filled trays in well-lit indoor sites, with minimal watering. If fed in late winter and the shoot tips pinched out to encourage bushy growth, they can be potted up in mid-spring and placed outside once the risk of frost has passed. Under glass, for small numbers of plants or limited space, plants can be lifted before the first frost and cut back to 10 cm, and placed in potting compost in a well-lit frost-free location, with minimal watering, and then repotted in mid-spring. Semi-dormant state, suitable for pelargoniums with tough woody stems where there are large numbers of plants. Plants can be lifted and allowed to dry out in a frost-free location, wrapped in newspaper or hung. In early spring the roots can be soaked, and the plants cut back and then potted up. Horticultural classification. Cultivated pelargoniums have traditionally been divided into 6 groups in addition to the species pelargoniums and primary hybrids. Regal, angel, ivy-leaved, zonal, scented-leaved, unique, regal pelargoniums. Large bush-type floriferous evergreen pelargoniums grown for the richness and beauty of their large flower heads. The majority of those grown today have been hybridized in the last 50 years and tend to be very short-jointed and compact, thus requiring little work to achieve a floriferous well-rounded plant. Flowers are single, rarely double, and mauve, pink, purple or white. They have rounded, sometimes lobed or partially toothed leaves, unlike the zonal groups, without any type of zoning. The regal pelargonium group includes a Euroe decorativea Eurotypes, which are the descendants of older, less compact, smaller flowered varieties that are more suited to outdoor conditions. And a Euroe orientale Eurotypes, which are the result of crosses between regals and members of the angel group. Some have bicolor foliage. In the USA they are often known as the A. Euro Martha Washingtona Euro unregistered trademark or a Euro Lady Washingtona Euro unregistered trademark pelargoniums. Angel pelargoniums. Cultivars, the majority of which originate from a cross between P. crispum and a regal variety in the early part of the 20th century. Angels have grown in popularity in the last 30 years or so, due mainly to an explosion of new varieties being released by specialist nurseries resulting from the work done by dedicated amateur hybridizers. These hybridizers have managed to obtain many new flower color breaks and tighter growth habits, resulting in plants suitable for all sorts of situations. A Euro Angels, a Euro unregistered trademark, basically have the appearance of a small regal with small serrated leaves and much smaller flowers and are more compact and bushy. The group extends to include similar small-leaved and flowered types, but usually with P. crispum in their parentage. They are mostly upright bush-type plants, but there are some lax varieties that can be used for basket or hanging pot cultivation. Often called pansy-faced in the U.S. Some varieties have bicolor foliage. Ivy-leaved pelargoniums. Usually of lax growth, mainly due to the long thin stems, with thick, waxy ivy-shaped stiff fleshy evergreen leaves developed by the species P. peltatum to retain moisture during periods of drought. Much used for hanging pots, tubs and basket cultivation. In the UK the bulbous double-headed types are preferred, whilst on the European continent the Balkan single types for large-scale hanging floral displays are favoured. Ivy-leaved pelargoniums embrace all such growth size types, including small-leaved varieties and genetic hybrid crosses, which display little or no zonal characteristics. May have bicolor leaves and may have flowers that are single, double or rosette. Zonal pelargoniums. Known as zonal geraniums because many have zones or patterns in the center of the leaves. Mostly bush-type plants with succulent stems grown for the beauty of their flowers. traditionally red, salmon, violet, white or pink. Zonals are often the pelargoniums most confused with geraniums, particularly in summer bedding arrangements. This incorrect nomenclature is widely used in horticulture, particularly in North America. They may also be referred to as Pelargonium ex hortorum. Flowers may be double or single. Zonal pelargoniums are tetraploid, mostly derived from P. incrinans and P. zonale, together with P. scandens and P. fratetorum, and include a variety of plant types along with genetic hybrids such as hybrid ivy-leaved varieties that display little or no ivy leaf characteristics, or the stellara unregistered trademark varieties. There are hundreds of zonal pelargoniums available for sale, and like other cultivars are sold in series such as Rocky Mountain, each of which is named after its predominant color, for example, Rocky Mountain dark red. Basic plants are mature plants with foliage normally exceeding 7 in height above the rim of the pot. For exhibition, these should be grown in a pot exceeding 4.75 in diameter but not normally exceeding 6.5 Dwarf plants are mature plants with foliage more than 5 above the rim of the pot, but not normally more than 7 For exhibition should be grown in a pot exceeding 3.5 but not exceeding 4.75 Miniature plants are mature plants with foliage normally less than 5 above the rim of the pot. For exhibition should be grown in a pot not exceeding 3.5 Micro miniature plants are mature plants with foliage normally less than 4 above the rim of the pot. Usually no separate classes for these in exhibition and will therefore normally be shown as miniature zonals. Deacon varieties are genetic hybrids similar to a large dwarf. For exhibition, usually grown in a pot not exceeding 5 otherwise as for dwarf zonals. Stellar varieties are a relatively modern genetic hybrid originating from the work done by the Australian hybridizer Ted both in the late 1950s and 1960s from crosses between Australian species and zonal types. Easily identifiable by their half-star-shaped leaves and slim-petaled blooms. Single varieties tend to have larger elongated triangular petals, whereas doubles tend to have thin feathered petals that are tightly packed together. For exhibition purposes there is a separate class for stellar varieties, but being zonals could be shown in an open class for basic, dwarf or miniature zonals. Fancy leaf zonal pelargoniums are besides having green leaves with or without zoning. This group also have variable colored foliage that is sometimes used in classifying for exhibition purposes, for example a bicolor unregistered trademark, a tricolor unregistered trademark, a bronze unregistered trademark or a gold unregistered trademark. Other foliage types are a black unregistered trademark or a butterfly unregistered trademark. There are an increasing number of these plants with showy blooms. Bicolor includes those with white or cream-veined leaves or those with two distinct colors with clearly defined edges, other than the basic zone. Tricolor or a gold tricolor. Gold tricolor leaves of many colors including red and gold, but usually with clearly defined edges of golden yellow and having a leaf zone, usually red or bronze, that overlays two or more of the other distinct leaf colors, so that the zone itself appears as two or more distinct colors. Silver tricolor or silver leaf these tend to resemble a normal bicolor leaf plant with two distinct colors usually of green and pale cream or white. The third color is usually made up of bronze zoning. When this zoning overlays the green part of the leaf it is deemed to represent a silver color. Bronze-leaved leaves of green or golden green with a heavy bronze or chestnut-colored center zone which is known as a medallion. For exhibition purposes, when exhibited in specific bronze unregistered trademark leaf class must have over 50% of leaf surface bronze-colored. The dwarf plant overchurch unregistered trademark which is a heavy bronze medallion. Gold-leaved leaves colored golden yellow or green yellow but not showing a tendency to green. For exhibition purposes, When exhibited in specific Gold unregistered trademark leaf class must have over 50% of leaf surface gold-colored. E. Black-leaved leaves colored black, purple-black or with distinct large dark zones or center markings on green. F. Butterfly-leaved leaves with a butterfly marking of distinct tone or hue in center of leaf. This can be encompassed in many of the colored leaf varieties. Zonal pelargoniums have many flower types as follows. A. Single-flowered each flower pip normally having no more than 5 petals. This is the standard flower set for all pelargoniums. B. Semi-double-flowered each flower pip normally having between 6 and 9 petals. C. Double-flowered each flower pip composed of more than 9 petals but not hearted unregistered trademark like the bud of a rose. Below, the dwarf dovepoint unregistered trademark which has full double blooms. D. Rosebud or noisette group each bloom fully double and hearted unregistered trademark. The middle petals are so numerous that they remain unopened like the bud of a rose. E. Tulip-flowered having semi-double blooms that never fully open. The large cup-shaped petals open just sufficiently to resemble a miniature tulip. F. Bird unregistered trademark egg group having blooms with petals that have spots in a darker shade than the base color, like many birds' eggs. G. Speckled flowered group having petals that are marked with splashes and flecks of another color. See the picture of Vectis embis unregistered trademark above. H. Cactus flowered group having petals twisted and furled like a quill. In the USA are known as the poinsettia flowering. Scented-leaved pelargoniums. Shrubby evergreen perennials grown chiefly for their fragrance, may be species or cultivars but all must have a clear and distinct scented foliage. Scent is emitted when the leaves are touched or bruised with some scents aromatic, others pungent and in a few cases, quite unpleasant. Several of the scented-leaved pelargoniums are grown for the oil geranola unregistered trademark, which is extracted from the leaves and is an essential oil much used commercially in perfumery. The scent of some species growing in their natural habitat acts as a deterrent to grazing animals who appear to dislike the emitted scent. Conversely, it also attracts other insect life to visit the bloom and pollinate the plant. The scented leaves can be used for potpourri and they also have a use as flavorings in cooking. Occasionally scent types can be found in some of the other groups mentioned, that is the angels having P. crispum in their genetic makeup can often have a strong citrus scent. Leaves are lobed, toothed, incised or variegated. Unique pelargoniums, bushy shrubby evergreen cultivars originating in the mid-19th century, all having P. fulgidum in their pedigree. May have bicolor foliage. Some types, popularly known in the hobby as hybrid uniques unregistered trademark, have been crossed with regal pelargoniums and, as a result of this cross, are much more floriferous. Unique in sense of not fitting into any of above categories. Species pelargoniums, the species are the forefathers of all the cultivar groups listed above. In general, the definition of a species is that it breeds true, and is to be found doing this in the wild unregistered trademark. Species pelargoniums have a large diversity of characteristics in habit, shape, size and color, which probably accounts for them having retained their popularity for more than 300 years. Primary hybrids. A primary hybrid is recognized as being the resultant plant from a first-time cross between two different known species. Examples are PXA ardens unregistered trademark from P. lobatum x P. fulgidum. PXA glauciifolium unregistered trademark from P. gibbosum x P. lobatum. Usually, but not always, primary hybrids are sterile. Scented leaf pelargoniums, cultivars are derived from a great number of species, amongst others P. graveolens. These include, species, almond, Pelargonium cassifolium, apple, Pelargonium odoratissimum, coconut, Pelargonium grossolarioides, lemon, Pelargonium crispum, nutmeg, Pelargonium fragrans, old spice, Pelargonium fragrans loges, peppermint, Pelargonium tomentosum, rose, Pelargonium graveolens, rose, Pelargonium capitatum, rose, Pelargonium radians, lemon-scented, Pelargonium citronellum, southernwood, Pelargonium abrotanifolium, strawberry, Pelargonium scarboroughii, Pelargonium ionidiflorum, fiery-flowered storksbill, Pelargonium ignescens scarlet, unique scented geranium. Cultivars, Attar of roses, a cultivar of P. capitatum, crowfoot rose, a cultivar of P. radians, Dr. Livingstone, a cultivar of P. radians, Grey Lady Plymouth, a cultivar of P. graveolens, Prince Rupert, a cultivar of P. crispum, hybrids, Ginger Pa, Torrento, Lemon Balm, a hybrid, Pa, Melissinum, Lima hybrid, Prince of Orange, a hybrid, Pa, Citrosum. List of AGM cultivars. The following is a selection of pelargoniums which have gained the Royal Horticultural Society's Award of Garden Merit: Attar of Roses, Citriodorum, Dolly Varden, Frank Headley, Fringed Aztec, Gemstone, Grace Thomas, Joy, Lady Plymouth, Lara Candy Dancer, Lara Starshine, L.A. Permil La Copyright Ganti, Mabel Gray, Mrs. Quilter, Radula, Royal Oak, Spanish Angel, Sweet Mimosa, Tip Top Duet, P. tomentosum, Voodoo. Usage: ornamental plants. Pelargoniums rank as one of the highest number of potted flowering plants sold and also in terms of wholesale value. Scented leaf pelargoniums, other than being grown for their beauty, species such as P. graveolens are important in the perfume industry and are cultivated and distilled for their scents. Although scented pelargoniums exist which have smells of citrus, mint, pine, spices or various fruits, the varieties with rose scents are most commercially important. Pelargonium distillates and absolutes, commonly known as scented geranium oil, are sometimes used to supplement or adulterate expensive rose oils. The edible leaves and flowers are also used as a flavoring in desserts, cakes, jellies and teas. Scented leafed pelargoniums can be used to flavor jellies, cakes, butters, ice cream, iced tea and other dishes. The rose, lemon and peppermint scents are most commonly used. Also used are those with hints of peach, cinnamon and orange. Commonly used lemon-scented culinary species include P. crispum and P. citronellum. Rose-scenteds include P. graveolens and members of the PA graveolensa unregistered trademark cultivar group. Other species in cultivars with culinary use include the lime-scented PA lime, a unregistered trademark, the lemon balm-scented PA lemon balm, a unregistered trademark, the strawberry lemon-scented PA Lady Scarborough, a unregistered trademark, and the peppermint-scented P. tomentosum. Herbal medicine. In herbal medicine, pelargonium has been used for intestinal problems, wounds and respiratory ailments, but pelargonium species have also been used for fevers, kidney complaints and other conditions. Geranium oil is considered a relaxant in aromatherapy, and in recent years, respiratory cold remedies made from P. sidoides and P. reniform have been sold in Europe and the United States. P. sidoides along with echinacea is used for bronchitis. P. odoratissimum is used for its astringent, tonic and antiseptic effects. It is used internally for debility, gastroenteritis, and hemorrhage, and externally for skin complaints, injuries, and neuralgia and throat infections. The essential oil is used in aromatherapy. It is also used to balance the hormonal system, menstrual flow, and clean the body of toxins. Image gallery. References. Notes. Bibliography, books, chapters and theses. Maria Lees Balkin, ed., Geranium and Pelargonium, History of Nomenclature, Usage and Cultivation. ISBN 0-415-28487-2, Elafi Wards Hillest, Van der Walt and Vista. Pelargoniums of Southern Africa 1988, Bakker, F.T., Cullum, A. and Gibby, M. 1999. Phylogenetics and Diversification in Pelargonium. Pages 353-374 in, Hollingsworth, P., Bateman, R. and Gornall, R., Molecular Systematics and Plant Evolution. Chapman and Hall, London. Mabberley, David J. Pelargonium. Mabberley's Plant Book. Cambridge University Press. PA 641. ISBN A11107782597. Retrieved August 17, 2014. Jacqueline Yolande Vert Lally. In vitro pharmacological properties and composition of leaf essential oils and extracts of selected indigenous Pelargonium species. Master of Pharmacy thesis, Faculty of Health Sciences, University of the Witwatersrand, Johannesburg, 2005. Articles, Aido and Far copyright Lixmoa plus or minus Osgomendia. Some notes on the sectional nomenclature of geranium. Taxon Volume 45, Number 1, pages 104 to 106, F. T. Backer, A. Coulomb, P. Heteroki, T. Terminador and Mary Gibby. Phylogeny of Pelargonium based on DNA sequences from 3 genomes. Taxon 53 February 2004, 17 €28, external links, the Pelargonium page, descriptions of botanical species with plant and habitat photos, Pacific Bulb Society, Pelargonium, Plants for Use, Pelargonium.